All right. Well, Marta, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm super excited to dive in with you and hear and have you share just all about loving yourself, getting to know yourself, and building self esteem, and just being really comfortable in who we are as individuals. And so, thanks for hopping on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get to this place of feeling super passionate and in love with helping women develop like self esteem?
So, the short story to all of this is I had triplets almost 4 years ago, and I'm originally from Brazil. I have lived in the US for a while. My husband's American. That's how I ended up here. But my background, my actual career has been with languages and with teaching languages. I'm also an interpreter here in Colorado for courts, for state courts. But after becoming a mom, I actually had my triplets in Brazil, and we decided to move back to the US. And now looking back, I kind of underestimated how difficult and how complicated that would to be a first time mom and to move away from my family
Mm.
and to have very little help. I'm a very active person. I'm very determined, a go-getter, and I didn't think that it was going to be hard. I mean, I knew it was going to be challenging to take care of three kids with no support system, but I didn't understand how intense that would be,
Mhm.
because I'd never been a mom before, and all of a sudden I had three kids, and
Yeah.
I I craved a community. I craved connection with, once you have babies and you're in that baby mode, baby zone, and you don't have adults around, your husband's working all day. It's hard for you to get out of the house because you have three babies. I found online to be a way that I could connect with people, but also a way that I could encourage myself in that moment and encourage other women and other moms. So that's
Mhm.
kind of how it all started. I understood that there was a possibility for me to become a coach, and it kind of went without me really knowing, but it really became this thing that it is today, of me just wanting to shine the light that I believe I have within me, of empowering women and helping women find that light within them too, so they can share it with the world.
That's awesome. And I think, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that wouldn't necessarily identify with having three kids all at once. But even for me, like having three kids at separate times, it's really overwhelming. So I imagine that added layer of doing it all at one time was exhausting. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, it was intense. And one thing that I say all the time now, because usually when you're living it, it's harder than whatever it is that you have lived before. So
Yes.
that could be an issue as well. But handling toddlers is a lot more complicated than handling newborns, as crazy as you might think, with having three at the same time, having to feed, change, blah, blah, blah. But still, it's an intense routine. There's little, I mean, women already find it hard to find time for themselves. But
Hmm.
within that routine, it was even harder. But I made it work. I made it a point, and that's where I believe I have this authority to say, to tell women, if I made it happen for me, and if this is the only way I believe I truly survived and I'm still surviving, then you can do it too.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that is a huge thing to point out because a lot of times I have women that'll give, they'll talk about their time and their schedule and all of these different responsibilities that they have and they use them as reasons for why they can't take care of themselves. So
Mhm.
I think like you just said, like even with three babies and three toddlers at home in a country all by yourself, like no family,
Mhm.
how you were able to choose to make that a priority and how that made such a
Yes.
difference for you.
Yeah, it was the only people often ask, "Are you insane? Why would you add something else?" But the thing is that I had to in order to survive. It may seem crazy, but that's when you say, everybody has 24 hours in the day, so it's
Yes.
all a matter of choices. And I realized I needed to take care of me because I didn't have much help, and that's what made me thrive with taking care of triplets as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. So I know that a part of it is getting to know who you are and kind of what those things are that make you you and how that changes maybe after you've had kids and like what that whole new dynamic looks like. So what is it like why do you think it's so important for women to explore themselves and get to know who they are internally and what lights them up?
Yeah, so I think that I always say that I'm my own case study. So I've been going through this whole process and using tools from different places. And now I get to kind of compile everything and share with women and say, this is my life. This is where this is what I've been doing, and this has worked for me. So now
Mhm.
you can take some of these hints, but ultimately you have to find what works for you. And I feel like with motherhood, there's a lot of that, right? We seek for so much
Yeah.
information of, okay, what is the best way I can be a mom? What's the best mom? What's the perfect mom? And we keep searching, especially now that we have so much access online. And while that is helpful, it makes us even more overwhelmed because everyone is different. And what you see online is not 100%. So it doesn't help to try to imitate anybody's lifestyle because it's not 100%. For one, it's not the whole truth, because
Mhm.
otherwise they wouldn't even be able to go to the bathroom or sleep if they showed everything, right? And two, because you are different. Your husband is
Yeah.
different, kids are different, your family background is different, maybe you live in a different country. Like, there's no way. So while it's very nice for us to find that formula, that mathematical equation that will solve all our problems, it's also not going to work because there's a human component, right? We're all
Yeah.
different. So there
Yeah.
is no formula. And it's hard to have to go after it yourself, but that's the reward,
Yeah.
right? Is to understand it for yourself, and nobody can take that away from you. So I believe that with motherhood, because there's so many factors, um, when you talk about parenting and your husband thinks differently, and then you have a child maybe with special needs, like, or you have a situation where you have multiples and you could never prepare for this,
Mhm.
that's when you have to figure out what works for you, what you like, and that's where understanding yourself and your personality is so important, because until you understand that, then you're not going to understand your husband very well, and you're
Totally.
not going to understand your kids very well. So
Yeah.
it all starts really with you. It's okay, I perform this way, but how does my husband perform? Okay, then let's find a way that we can combine that and make it the best. And the same thing with your kids. So this is why it's so important, because we and this is what I see with my kids, especially with them being born the same day. They're so different. It's insane. And they're not identical, but still, I know of kids that are identical and they're still very different. Um, and they already have that essence. They already have those inclinations, those talents.
Yeah.
And I didn't instill any of that in them. They were just born like that.
Yes.
Crazy to see because they're so little. Like, there's no denying that they're different, and they already have certain tastes. And we're all born like this. And throughout life, we lose sight of this because we have responsibilities. We have to go through the path of school, college, finding a job right away. So you kind of forget what you like. You kind of forget what makes you happy because you have to follow these rules, which
Mhm.
makes our lives more organized and adds structure. But at the same time, it also adds confusion, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really important for us to tune in and to look within ourselves. And there is not a whole lot of time to do that, but I believe motherhood really is that one time where you're kind of get stopped in your tracks because you lose control. It was one of the first moments, I think, in my life where I really realized I can't control everything anymore. Like, it's out of my hands.
Yes.
So one thing I can control still is me. So that's why it's so important for you to get to know yourself, because whether, while you're still going to have things that you can't really change about yourself, once you understand yourself, you can decide what serves you and what doesn't serve you to start making the changes within the possibilities.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm kind of curious to hear like your take on how do you kind of explore or like the changes that happen from being a mother before, or like not a mother, but before you became a mother,
Mhm.
and that person that you were, and maybe those tastes and preferences and things that you thought were who you are, and like how they are after. I know for me, I feel like motherhood has been the most refining thing and has helped me to
Yes.
really explore who I am.
Hmm.
And sometimes I look back and at when I was in college or early married and think, gosh, I had no clue what I really wanted or who I really was.
Yeah.
And motherhood brought that out. But I think for some people it doesn't. And it causes a lot of grief and tension and distraught in that
Yeah.
letting go of that person that was before.
Hmm.
So how have you navigated that, and like what recommendations or ideas do you have regarding that transition period?
So I totally get what you're saying, because that's one of the things that I talk a lot about, is that once you become a mom, there's two different ways you could go. You could go with the path of, okay, let's just keep doing what we're doing and being overwhelmed because I'm just surviving every day. I count
Mhm.
the minutes for my kids to go to bed, and then it's time for me to go to bed. The day's over, and tomorrow I do it all over again. So that's that. Or
Yeah.
take it as an opportunity to really find what your purpose in life is, which is
Yeah.
what I decided to do. Like, what am I showing these kids? What am I teaching these kids? I can't be with them for the rest of their lives. So what I pass on to them is what they're going to take. So I might as well figure out really well what that is that I'm going to be passing on to them.
Yeah.
And so basically, I feel like when you talk about that resentment of I lost who I used to be, it's really important for you to see that by becoming a mom and having the opportunity to pass something on to people that you're 100% responsible for, you actually have the opportunity to become who you really are. And
Hmm.
it may seem kind of crazy, but let me see if I can explain it more, because lots of people in this process, because I share my life online so much,
Yeah.
they tell me, you're so different. You seem so different than when I used to know you before motherhood, or when you used to live
Uh-huh.
in Brazil or whatever. And for a while I kind of thought, yeah, man, I changed. But now what I'm seeing is I haven't really changed. I've just allowed myself to be who I am.
Yeah.
I've just put in the time to really discover who I really am. And it even gets me emotional, because when I think back to me as a little kid, and I like how I see my kids now, this is who I was,
Hmm.
bubbly and not afraid of whatever, and not caring if people are going to like me or not. I just was. This is how kids are. They just are. And then
Hmm.
life gets in the way. So I believe motherhood, and it doesn't have to be motherhood, but I feel like it's a really um it's a moment where dividing waters, I forget what the
Yeah.
expression is, division of waters, where it's like you get to there's a moment for you to get a hard look on yourself and look at yourself. But it could be, and this is what I encourage other women that are not moms yet, like, if you're listening to this message, you can do this too. This can happen. You don't have to wait for a loved one to pass away to go through this moment. You don't have to wait for motherhood to hit. You
Hmm.
can start this process right now. But usually in difficult times is when we start reflecting, right? Is when we get introspective. But for me, I think motherhood helped me in this process of, there is no reason why I can't be who I want to be and who I really am.
Yeah.
And this is what I should be doing, because then that I'm teaching my kids the same thing. I'm teaching them that it's okay for them to be who they are, and that they can spend the time to figure out who that is, instead of me telling them, hey, you should be a lawyer. Hey, you should be a doctor. You know what I mean? They will
Yeah.
figure that out because I figured it out for myself.
Yeah. Well, and I know you talk about like motherhood being kind of a clean slate and that a new opportunity. Is
Yeah.
this kind of where you're talking about, or do you have anything else in terms of where you believe it's really a clean slate?
Yeah, this is what I mean. It's a clean slate, because
Yeah.
it's that moment where, okay, do I want to stay at home with my kids and raise them until they start going to school? Do I want to go back into work right away? Or maybe I do want to go back into work, but I used to hate my job. So what do I do? And sometimes we think like these things are already pre-established and predetermined, but they aren't really. You're the one
Hmm.
who's going to decide, because if you really sit down and tell your husband like, hey, I hate that job, and I mean, if you have a pretty good relationship, he should be able to support you into finding something else. Or maybe you can come up with a plan of, I will still do this, but looking into something else that I love. And so this is what happened to me, especially because I moved away. We went through this crazy move, and I was going to stay at home with the kids. And so I found this thing online that I could be doing until they went to school. And it just happened that way. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's why it's the clean slate. But there are other opportunities for you to do this same thing. It doesn't have to be motherhood, but motherhood is this big, huge moment that allows you to go through this situation.
I know. And it's so amazing. It's so funny to me and like kind of ironic that before I became a mom, I thought I just didn't really understand all like the catalyst of like how much and how big of a moment that is, like you get this baby, you find out you're pregnant, you get this baby in your arms and you're holding it. And I don't think you really can fathom, at
Right.
least I didn't,
Yeah.
all of what was going to happen after that moment, and how much my life I feel like is like yours in the sense that it's completely 180 degrees in what I know about myself and who I am and how I live day to day to day than I was ever before. And it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and it's and now that my kids are a little bit older, like the more time passes and I look back at those early days, I feel exactly what you're saying. I had absolutely no idea. Like
Yeah.
you knew you would have no idea, but then when it happens, it's like, oh my gosh, nobody can prepare you for this,
No.
in
Yeah.
a good and in a challenging way, right? And especially now that I've been doing all this work of self-awareness and self-knowledge, and I look back into those moments where I still trying to bond with my kids and really figure out, okay, this is my child. Weird.
Mhm.
They were not here a few days ago, and now I'm responsible for them. And now, because I have gotten to know them, that they're becoming people,
Yeah.
I think back like I had no idea how in love I would be. Like, of course I loved them then, but now that there are these spunky little kids, like I love them even more, and I could never imagine my life without them.
Yes, yes. Or how much that they could push your buttons.
Oh yeah, that
Never
too.
imagined that either.
For sure.
So I know like becoming aware of yourself and being in tune with yourself and living into who you truly are comes with a little bit of work and like establishing some daily habits, but then it becomes super easy and effortless. So, what are some of those habits and things that you've implemented to really get to know yourself, become more confident in who you are, and true to who you are inside?
So I believe there are certain things that we can do to kind of start the habit of getting in tune with yourself. But
Hmm.
again, just like I said earlier, these are things that you're going to have to figure out for you and
Yeah.
what will work for you, because there are so many books out there of morning routines and meditations and different things. I mean, if you follow different people on Instagram and on social media, they will tell you all about what they do that makes them happy and yada, yada, yada. And you can try all of these things, but ultimately you have to know what will work for you. And maybe it'll work for a season and then it won't work anymore. And this is what I have been noticing with me. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with my personality too. I tend to get bored easily. So I have to change it up once in a while. Some people are
Hmm.
more methodical and they like that same structure forever, which is fine. So that's why getting to know yourself is so important, because then you will be okay with saying, hey, so and so said that this is the foolproof way of starting my day. But it doesn't work for me. And it's
Yeah.
okay. And being really honest with yourself and not beating yourself up if you try doing what so and so recommended and it doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but what I really like to do is exercise is a huge part of my routine, and I have come to realize that this has to do with my personality, because I have so much energy. I have to be able to let some steam off, and I know exercising daily is something that helps me so much, and it has to be
Hmm.
heavy exercise. I have tried yoga, I have tried Pilates, I love them, but ultimately that's not what makes me happy. So it has to be, I have to be sweating, I have to be cursing at the trainer, it has to be intense, and that's what works for me. And I highly encourage some type of movement, right? So
Yeah.
some people hate that kind of stuff. I don't want to be red in the face. I don't want to feel like my heart's gonna come out of my chest. Fine, then find something that will make you tune in to yourself. And maybe that's a quick yoga practice in the morning. Maybe it's taking a class, going to an actual place where you will have a group setting. So you have to figure out what works for you. But I know moving your body is super important. And one thing that I really like to do is write stuff out. So having a gratitude, writing out
Hmm.
gratitude. And one thing that um, I learned with one of my mentors, and it's become a key part of my coaching and what I teach, is actually keeping a list or writing not only things that you're grateful for, but things that you're proud of yourself.
Hmm.
Because usually in the gratitudes, you're not there, right? You're grateful for people, you're grateful for things, you're grateful for feelings, but you're not really grateful for you in those moments. And I believe that because of this, of the importance that I have understood of getting to know myself, I have to be able to appreciate myself too.
Yeah.
And writing things and that have to do with how proud I am of myself, like it changes everything. When you're able to look at even like the past few months and say, oh my gosh, look at what I was able to accomplish. Especially, and I feel like this is really important for me because I'm an overachiever and I tend to do a million things. So it's hard for me to actually to ever stop and be like, look at what I did. It was great,
Hmm.
But I feel like most of us do this, that we don't really get to see how great of things we do on a daily basis and how
Yeah.
amazing we are. We wait for people to tell us that. And if they don't, then we feel like we're crap. So don't wait.
Yeah.
Start taking notes of, I've been wanting to put this laundry away for 2 weeks now. And yesterday I finally did it. That's pretty amazing. You know, it doesn't have to be anything big, but if you have big stuff, then put that stuff on the list too.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think I call it celebrating wins. And it's one of the things that I put in my Rising Moms journal, because I think we don't celebrate our wins enough. And it's amazing. I haven't been super great about it recently, but when I started, where you write down, and then at the end of the year, you can go look back at just the little things
Yeah.
each week, each day, however often you want to put it down on there, but celebrating those things that you did well. Because when I reflect back on my whole year, I don't recognize all of the little ways that I won. I'm just looking for that big, or we just have this
Mm,
negative mindset, like
yeah.
skew when we reflect back. But if we write them down and recognize them,
Yeah.
it's huge. Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. So, before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you feel like you want to share today?
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to invite is moms that are interested in personal development, because this is where, this is where I live. I just love getting to know myself and challenging myself to grow and to change and evolve. And I have a membership site. It's actually a collaborative platform called the Empowered Women School, where you can both be a teacher and a student. And it's all about learning how to be empowered through self love. So you have both the opportunity of learning from the amazing women that are already on there with weekly classes, but also you have the opportunity of teaching on any topic that you would like. After applying for it and determining if that fits, of course, then you get to share. And this is a great opportunity for not only sharing your business, but making your voice be heard, which is exactly what
Mhm.
we're talking about here, understanding that all of us have a gift and we all have something to share. And so I am super excited about this too.
Yeah, that's really awesome. So, if people want to find you on social media, where or online, anywhere, where other than that website, where else can they find you?
So I am very active on Instagram. It's just Marta Spirk, and on Facebook as well, Marta Spirk. And I have my podcast, Mom Does It All, where you can find lots of amazing interviews with inspiring women. And of course, my website, martaspirk.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marta, for jumping on. This was amazing. And I think so many women are going to walk away today just feeling empowered to get to know themselves and to trust that there is somebody in there that is ready for them to listen to. So I'm excited.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.